This is a 1973 Honda CL175, and I did some engine work to this. Well, I replaced a couple gaskets. I needed a side cover gasket and a speedo gasket on this side for the speedo cable. I also painted the gas tank. I don't know if you can see. Turned out pretty good. If you're wondering, I used all rattle cans on this gas tank, and the clear coat is an acrylic enamel, and I just wet sanded it and buffed it out real quick. And it's missing a logo, it's missing another side cover, so this bike's not like a show bike or anything, but it's a nice little driver. You know what's cool about these engines, these things make 20 horsepower, which might not sound like a lot, but for a 175cc engine, that's actually pretty crazy. Of course, you got to rev it way up to get that. So I had to replace the ignition on this. The ignition switch with one from just an auto parts store, because it broke on me. We got a bunch of rocketers over here. Alright, so anyway, I have no idea what the actual mileage is on this bike. On the title it said 121,000, which I don't believe that's true. This speedo says 20,000. I have no idea what's going on with the mileage, but the one thing about this bike, so the carbs, you know, there's two separate carbs. They aren't linked together, and they don't have a one idle screw on the carbs. So, and the choke honestly barely does anything on this. Setting the idle on this bike is probably the trickiest thing I've ever done. And because if you set it for when it's cold, by the time it warms up, it's idling at 2,500 RPMs. So you set it for when it's hot. I mean, it starts up and it doesn't want to idle. So basically, that's where I kind of have it set now. And you just kind of keep revving it up, or just drive it while it's cold. The really trickiest carburetors I've ever messed with when it comes to that. I mean, they're very simple, but you either got to set it for hot or cold. Maybe just because it's such a small engine that it's more affected by the temperature change. You know, any carbureted bike, the idle goes up when you warm it up, when it gets hot, but this one's very extreme. The exhaust, as you may or may not know, somebody kind of cut it off, stuck some chicken wire in there or something. It sounds good though. Oh, I'm on a stand. There we go. Notice the kickstand's kind of in the way. worst thing about this bike is you're doing like 40. Feels like you're doing like 100. But it's basically a bicycle with an engine, really. I mean, this bike moves. I'm a 250-pound guy, and I mean, it's pulling me, but you know, someone that weighs 120 or something, definitely gonna have a lot more pep to it. only thing I regret about that was that last upshift. That was a little too high. The only time you ever really have any problems with these any of these engines, even though like the CB750 is coming down from redline, you don't really want to let them come down from redline. For some reason, that's usually when you have a problem.